all of you for attending this meeting devoted to the discussion on the Global Digital Compact for a human governance of artificial intelligence. This initiative is a part of the international roadshow leading to the 20th Festival of Economics of Trento, a key annual forum that gathers experts, leaders, institutions, and private sector representatives to discuss pressing global economic and social challenges, promoted by Il Sole 24 Ore, Italy's leading financial newspaper. I'm particularly glad for this partnership, and let me please begin by thanking Il Sole 24 Ore, and in particular the editor-in-chief, Fabio Tamburini. We have known each other for a long time. The Director General for Publishing and Digital, Karen Nahun, and their team for co-organizing and promoting with us today's discussion. As you know, in September 24, last year, as annex to the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact was adopted. This represented the first ever attempt to provide a global platform for the governance of emerging technologies and artificial intelligence. As we step into implementation phase, today's discussion is timely and relevant, and I'm grateful for the presence of our distinguished speakers who will provide a first-hand insight of the global efforts to uphold such commitments. I welcome my friend and colleague, the Secretary General Envoy on Technology, Amandeep Gill, who will deliver the keynote speech, as well as Ambassador Chola Milambo, who has been at the forefront of the GDC negotiations and who has been so kind to connect from Lusaka. Chola, nice to see you. Ambassador Maritza Chan, permanent representative of Costa Rica, next to me, who, together with Spain, is steering the negotiations on two crucial follow-ups to the Global Digital Compact: the establishment of an institutional scientific panel on AI and the launch of the Global Dialogue on AI Governance. I'm also glad, very glad to have here the Executive Director of the Global Digital Compact, Sandar Jambo, and Chris Sharrock, Vice President of United Nations and International Organizations at Microsoft, who will address the essential role of the private sector in a multi-stakeholder approach to the AI. Also delighted to welcome Robert Opp, Chief Digital Officer of UNDP. Finally, we are honored to have a UNDP Administrator, Achim Steiner, share his closing remarks via a video message despite his commitments before the UNDP Executive Board. Before kicking off the discussion, just let me stress that Italy attaches great importance to this topic and stands ready to play its part. We see the importance of AI also in the dimension of development, particularly Africa. And let me remind you that during the Italian G7 presidency last year, Italy launched with the UNDP the AI Hub for Sustainable Development in partnership with the African leaders, as well as the private sector, startups, academia, and international organizations. I stop here and pass the floor to the moderator for the rest of our intervention. Thank you very much.
Very much to everybody at the Italian mission, and thanks for being here to everyone, distinguished guests, ambassador, everyone that is joining us in remote here in New York or here in New York in person. As the first intervention, I'm happy to introduce you to Karen Nahum, General Manager Publishing and Digital of Il Sole 24 Ore Group. She has focused on digital and multimedia strategies and the impact of new technologies on society, and she has been named among the Inspiring 50 Italian most influential women in tech and innovation. Thank you, Karen, for being here.
Thank you. I'm deeply honored to be here on behalf of Il Sole 24 Ore, starting this journey from New York to the Festival of Economics in Trento this May holds great significance for all of us. I would like to express my gratitude to the Italian ambassador Maurizio Massari, who is hosting us, Councillor Daniela Tonon, whose dedication and efforts were instrumental in building the entire program, and Councillor Ludovica Murazzani, who has been providing invaluable support for press and office activities, and Engineer Alessandro Lofaro, who is assisting us today. And of course, all the distinguished guests joining us today and all the attendees online who are following us. The inclusive governance of artificial intelligence is one of the most pressing geopolitical and economic issues of our time. As we are all aware, this transformative technology will profoundly impact people's daily life. In this historical moment, the interconnection of political, economic, scientific, and technological matters with humanity's future is more apparent than ever. The attention devoted to this monumental challenge by the United Nations General Assembly under the leadership and vision of its Secretary General has inspired our multimedia editorial group to fully support this initiative. Today, we gathered to discuss topics that resonate deeply with Il Sole 24 Ore, the first Italian editorial group to adopt a code of self-regulation on artificial intelligence. This code establishes ethical principles and best practices to ensure the responsible use of AI in the editorial and professional activities of Gruppo 24 Ore. Through our ongoing initiative, Human in the Loop, our company is committed to placing people and their professional expertise at the center of the AI development and adoption processes. This approach ensures that the AI-driven decision and action remain under human oversight, empowering professionals to retain their autonomy and judgment. In the field of journalism, AI serves as a tool to support the work of journalists. It is not a substitute for human creativity or decision-making, as our unwavering commitment remains to deliver high-quality, impartial, and diverse information. I firmly believe that the publishing and information sectors play a pivotal role in supporting global and local institutions in implementing initiatives like the Global Digital Compact. This effort seeks to establish a framework for AI governance that serves the greater good of humanity. In the broader context of digital transformation, the balance between capacity building for development and the protection and promotion of human rights is crucial. Good information ensuring individuals' rights to work, to access knowledge, and to stay well informed is essential for political decisions that rise to meet the challenges of our time. Thank you all for your kind attention, and I leave the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, very much. And now joining us with a video message is the editor-in-chief of Il Sole 24 Ore, Fabio Tamburini, who is a journalist, author, and economist, and his career has held key positions in many prestigious Italian media groups before Il Sole itself. So it's my pleasure to introduce the video message.
Good morning, everyone. We have been warming up our engines for a few months now, and it is time to get to the heart of the topics. We do so with the first stage of this road to Trento, which we decided to organize in New York. It was almost an obligatory choice considering the current climate and also the title of this year's edition. I'd like to thank the Italian Embassy, which gave us a fundamental help in organizing this first event in view of the 2025 edition of the Trento Festival of Economics, which will be held this year from the 22nd to the 25th of May, of course, in Trento. We have chosen as a title for the 2025 edition Risks and Fatal Choices. The second line of the title is Europe at the Crossroads. That's why it makes sense to start this road to Trento from the US and from New York. Fatal choices and risks all round. We must say that 2024 closed with big news. The outcome of the elections in the US, the nomination of Donald Trump, who both during the electoral campaign and immediately after the elections made it clear to the world that nothing will be the same as before. So risks, because when there is change, there are always associated risks and fatal choices. In this scenario of polarization, on one side the United States, on the other China, this is the picture of geopolitics today, there is a Europe that must find its renewed role. That's why the second line in the title is Europe at the Crossroads. It is a Europe that has many difficulties. The countries that have been the engine of the European development, Germany, but also France, are in crisis. Germany is in recession and cannot get out of it, and France is not feeling too well either. So a weak Europe that is economically very divided and also with an identity crisis, which is intertwined with an obvious lack of leadership. We shall see how the Festival of Economics turns out. It is interesting to understand in this scenario of American and Chinese polarization what role Europe can find. It's a role that interests not only Europe but the whole world. It also interests the Organization of the United Nations. A Europe that has a voice, I believe, is a guarantee of dialectics that interests the whole world of geopolitics, the whole world of international economics. Over the 4 days of the festival, topics will be addressed across the board. A significant part in collaboration with ISPI, as is now traditionally the case, will be devoted to geopolitics. Then there will be vertical themes. First and foremost, artificial intelligence, but also energy, how the labor market is changing, how the world of health and healthcare is evolving. In short, there are many aspects to be addressed and explored. The topic of artificial intelligence is important. It is wrong to say that it will change the world. It is already changing the world. Artificial intelligence is already among us. It is changing our lives. it is creating the conditions for other formidable changes, for other formidable innovations. This is what the 2025 edition of the Festival of Economics will be about. And it is also the topic of this Road to Trento that starts from New York today. Artificial intelligence means extraordinary high investments. In recent days, President Trump has spoken of a $500 billion investment over the next 5 years. But China, too, is not standing by and watch. Truly massive investments have been made in China, and the results are not to be foretold, but they are already truly striking, and such as to call into question the American leadership, until now unchallenged in the field of advanced technologies. And then there is the old Europe, which is struggling. It hasn't had the economic strength, at least so far, to play a role. And what's more, it presents itself as significantly divided, even in the field of advanced technologies and artificial intelligence. In short, there is a lot to think about. There are many subjects to investigate, and that's why events such as today's event take a particular significance. Thank you all for your participation and have a meeting.
Thank you for this message to Editor-in-Chief Tamburini. And now, without further ado and further delay, for the keynote speech, I'm honored to introduce Amandeep Gill. Amandeep Gill is Undersecretary General and Special Envoy for Digital and Emerging Technology. From 2022 to January, he has been the UN Secretary General's Tech Envoy. He served for 3 decades in the Indian Diplomatic Service, and in 2018 co-led the United Nations Secretary General High-Level Panel on Digital Cooperation. Thank you for your participation and for your...
Thank you for the kind introduction. It reminded me I'm getting on in the years. Ambassador Massari, pleasure to be here again at the Italian mission. Ambassadors Chan, Ambassador Milambo, my distinguished colleagues, ASG Ojiambo, Director Aika Suzuki, Robert Opp, the Chief Digital Officer of UNDP, and then, of course, my dear friend and Vice President in Microsoft, Chris Sharrock, comes from a diplomatic background, as we all know. Thank you. This is very timely, very relevant, the theme of human governance of artificial intelligence. And I'd like to commend the organizers for convening this event in the lead up to the special 20th anniversary edition Trento Festival, where these crucial issues heard how they interlink with geopolitics and geoeconomics. And I'd also like to acknowledge the efforts of the Italian G7 presidency, advancing the responsible use and development of trustworthy and human-centered AI. My office, now the Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies, actively participated throughout the year and published the report, Mind the AI Divide, Shaping a Global Perspective on the Future of Work, together with ILO at the request of the Italian presidency to inform the deliberations of the Labor Minister. I'd also like to applaud the initiative to set up the AI Hub with UNDP. Distinguished colleagues, just 2 weeks ago, the Secretary General outlined his priorities for 2025, emphasizing our historic responsibility to ensure that the AI evolution benefits all of humanity, not just a privileged few. He underscored that the Global Digital Compact provides the vital roadmap for translating our aspirations for AI into concrete actions. And today's discussions offer us an opportunity to build upon the SG's call to action. And we must address the opportunities and challenges linked to AI, implementation of the Global Digital Compact, particularly its objective to enhance the international governance of AI for the benefit of humanity. The powerful dual nature of AI presents both unprecedented opportunity and serious risks across all aspects of our societies. It transcends borders, demanding a unified global response. No nation or group of nations, however powerful, can tackle these challenges alone. Now, how does the Global Digital Compact offer a unique framework to address these dual priorities, harnessing the opportunities for the benefit of all people and mitigating its risks to protect the most vulnerable? First, it calls for the establishment of an independent international scientific panel on AI and a global dialogue on AI governance, both within the United Nations. And Ambassador Chan is leading the effort on the modalities of these two steps, along with her distinguished colleague from Spain. The Global Digital Compact also recognizes the need on innovative financing options for AI capacity development. These are clear indications that the international community is committed to a bare modicum of collaboration and progress on AI amid challenging circumstances. I say a bare modicum because we could have been more ambitious, but this is perhaps the minimum we need if we are to tackle the opportunities and the risks. The SG has envisioned the International Scientific Panel as the go-to resource offering impartial analysis of AI's capabilities, opportunities, and potential risks. This technology's capabilities are advancing at an astonishing pace. Every 2 weeks brings a new model and brings a new break. And yet we lack a shared scientific assessment of its progress or the breakthroughs on the horizon. And the typical example today is the breakthrough we witnessed last week with the release of DeepSeek R1 and the shockwaves it sent through the stock market, which is another reminder of how the growth of AI capabilities affect wider society and economics and raise questions about openness and opportunities as well as risks. So as AI's capabilities grow, many people are saying that we are kind of shifting to a new scaling curve. It'll be more important to make sure that we have the right assessment and that these developments do not deepen inequalities among nations and within countries. An effective and inclusive scientific panel will provide a shared reference point for debate and decision making. And in the first consultation that Ambassador Chan co-chaired, we heard a call that we in the Secretariat fully second for a group of experts with expertise in different areas of AI, including ethics and societal impact. I want to conclude by underlining the importance of the global dialogue on AI governance, which, as the SG underlined, would be a platform for governments, industry, and civil society to collaborate under the auspices of the UN. It is a space to develop and share policies, best practices, and ensure interoperability. It is not a top-down effort to force nations, regions to adopt particular approaches or frameworks, but it is an essential place where we can all learn from each other and where we can advance international understandings on guardrails for AI that uphold human rights, prevent misuse, and encourage competition and responsible innovation. Timely and successful establishment of these mechanisms is of the highest importance to the Secretary General and to all of us in the United Nations. And we are fully committed to support the co-facilitators and member states in these efforts and in realizing the Compact's wider vision for AI governance. Now, just to end with a brief word about our internal efforts. So as part of the implementation for the Pact of the Future, the SG has established, he chairs a steering committee, and he's established a working group on digital technologies, co-chaired by the newly established ODET, Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies, and the International Telecommunication Union. This group is developing a plan of action on how the UN system can best support member states and deliver on its tasks. And by September, the Secretary General will present a report on innovative voluntary financing models and capacity building initiatives to help the Global South harness AI for greater good. And we are confident that this group could build upon the initiatives of the Italian G7 presidency and provide valuable suggestions. So with that, I hand it over to the esteemed panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for your contribution to the Undersecretary General and Special Envoy for Digital and Emerging Technology, Amandeep Gill. We now we are very fortunate to actually have a great panel of key players to continue the discussion on the themes that were mentioned. Key players in what is clearly one of the major challenges of our time: the governance, the human governance of artificial intelligence. Let me just introduce the panel with a couple of words. The UN is squarely at the center of this ongoing debate to navigate, as it was mentioned, opportunities and risks created by this fast developing and transformative technology, a necessary debate that cannot settle for any techno-optimism, as shown by the work of economists such as the MIT and Nobel Prize laureates Simon Johnson and Daria Acemoglu. The path and impact of technological advances is a matter of choices, far from predetermined, from always being in the public interest and in that of shared prosperity. This is why the Global Digital Compact framework adopted by the UN and the far-reaching negotiations on its implementations that have started mark a very important commitment, and even more so in an era of uncertainty for multilateral cooperation on many fronts. And now, just to briefly present the panelists that are the speakers that are with us, if you indulge me for a moment. We have Ambassador Chola Milambo. He's the permanent representative of Zambia at the United Nations. He is with us remote from abroad. He has decades of experience in development at the national and international level, served as a co-facilitator of the negotiations for the Global Digital Compact adopted during the Summit of the Future last year. We have Ambassador Maritza Chan, the Costa Rican permanent representative to the United Nations, an advocate for establishing governance frameworks for AI and emerging technologies, and as a follow-up to the UN Global Digital Compact, she is with Spain's permanent representative, as mentioned, one of the two co-facilitators for the process to establish the Independent International Scientific Panel on AI and the Global Dialogue on AI Governance. We also have Sanda Oyambo, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations Global Compact Office, CEO and Executive Director of the UN Global Compact. She has led an increase of business engagement with UN partners to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the compact has expanded to over 20,000 companies, its membership to over 20,000 companies. And we also have with us Mr. Chris Sharrock, he is the Vice President of United Nations and international organizations at Microsoft, leading a team across New York, Geneva, Paris, and Washington, D.C., works to build multi-stakeholder partnerships and use technology to advance solutions to global challenges. Previously, he has held a number of senior roles in the UK government. And finally, we have also with us Robert Obb, Chief Digital Officer of UNDP. the United Nations Global Sustainable Development Organization, working across 170 countries with more than 17,000 staff, leads the agency's digital transformation, and prior to this role, he served as a director of the Innovation and Change Management Division within the United Nations World Food Program. Welcome to all our speakers, and if I may start right away, Ambassador Milambo, that couldn't be here but is with us from Lusaka. If I may ask you if you could give us an overview of the negotiations for the Global Digital Compact, how the compact came about, lessons, your hopes, and the priorities also. That maybe, if I may ask you, for the countries of the global South, and how you see them addressed.
Thank you very much. Let me start really by thanking the Italian mission. Mauricio, thank you so much. I really wish I could have been there with you. I see many of my friends who have worked on the Digital Compact, both in the front lines and in the background, and I take my hat off to all of you. Yes, so Global Digital Compact, as Mauricio mentioned, came through, was adopted in September last year. And we're very, very excited to get to that point. From our viewpoint as co-facilitators together with Sweden, we're very pleased to reach that point because, like you said, it reflected an important point and it demonstrated the importance of what you can do if countries work together. It was a thumbs up to multilateralism and passing the torch to the other processes that are expected to take place at the UN on a cooperative level. So that was a very, very important point in history, I must say. Also, just to point out that the history of it, of course, comes out of our common agenda, which was rolled out by the UN Secretary General, who clearly identified that the issue of digital cooperation is something that needed to be addressed. And the key issue there, of course, is that the various trends that take place in the globe, which were taking place in the globe, technology was moving at neck-breaking speed. And so this needed member states to work collaboratively. And I just want to point out that also Amandi pointed out that the scale of the challenge that we have cannot be addressed by one single country. And so the need for collaboration on these issues was very, very important. Clearly, when we looked at the landscape, member states could see that the world was greatly fragmented across different areas, countries moving much faster than others, and that the potential that the technologies had the risk of creating, and they still do have the risk of creating a great digital divide, which can easily translate into a development divide. Putting the SDGs basically at threat. And so countries come together, and it was clear from the beginning that member states could see that closing the digital divide was the biggest issue and had to be put front and center. The issues around connectivity were key. The issue of globalization requires that you have a singular market. You need to ensure that you close all the digital divides, and that development had to be at the front and center of this issue. As was said earlier, that we had to have people at the center of the Global Digital Compact. And so the key priorities really lined up, to be very frank, between those who put development as the key issue, and then that was juxtaposed with the issues around human rights. So it was the issue of balancing innovation with the issue of protection of human rights. And this came across all the five sections of the Global Digital Compact. We think that we came out with a very good balance, a balanced document. And I think that's where the credibility of the document lies, I must say, in finding a balanced document. Now, in that, the balance of the document is a function of how balanced the process is. And that's why it becomes important that a key principle when you're getting through these international agreements is inclusiveness. And I must say that that inclusiveness must have representation from all corners of the globe, including multi-stakeholders. And through the process, we had made very strong commitments about how we would ensure that we'd have an inclusive process with multi-stakeholders in it. To your question, what were the key factors that maybe I should point out? The other issue was, like I said, the focus on development, with reminding each other that even if we have different perspectives on the various issues, ultimately we've all signed up for the SDGs and we must all push to attain the SDGs. The other issue, of course, was that the GDC needed a very strong follow-up mechanism. And as regards the artificial intelligence, we were pleased that we found consensus on the Independent International Scientific Panel on AI, which the modalities have been followed up by my friend Marisa and my colleague from Spain, and also the global dialogue. And I think the onus remains going forward is to ensure that we implement these mechanisms well. We have confidence that the COFAX will roll out a good set of mechanisms, and that it also falls on the member states to follow through with the other international agreements that are coming, that they must capture the agreements that are in the SDGs, in the GDC. One example, of course, is financing for development, which is another process that Zambia is leading on, to ensure that the GDC and the FFD speak to each other in some way or form. Already in the draft document that we have for financing for development for the 4th International Conference, we have references to GDC. We recognize that digitalization is a game changer. As a matter of fact, the word digital is mentioned almost 50 times in the zero draft that we have. And we point to the global dialogue as the platform where we can have discussions on fintech. So basically, there has to be this cross-pollination between these documents and the reaffirmation of multilateralism as we go through them, while protecting the importance of multi-stakeholderism in it. I must point out, just to close, that I think the global dialogue, one of its key roles would be exactly this issue that was highlighted, finding the humanity in the innovation. And that would be a really, really important part of the process. The decision of where the issues of where does the decision cutoff lie when it comes to artificial intelligence? How far ethically or from a human rights perspective should AI take the decision making? Because the issue of responsibility ultimately has to rest with the human with a human being. Ultimately. So I think that's going to be a critical part. But let me end it there, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And now, if I may ask Ambassador Chan, the first meeting on the intergovernmental process was to implement the GDC, if I'm correct, was actually this month. And for the AI scientific panel and then the dialogue on AI governance. Could you share with us how that process is developing?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you, Maurizio, for this opportunity. We need more states with a constructive leadership on AI governance. Thank you, Italy, and this event is a very important way to pave the way forward. Cutting-edge developments on AI are advancing rapidly. And as you know, the permanent representative of Spain and myself have been entrusted by the President of the General Assembly to lead and facilitate the intergovernmental negotiations on the design of an independent scientific panel on AI and a global dialogue on AI governance. I would like to take this opportunity to update you on what we heard during the consultations of January 17th. We had over 32 member states participating and giving upon the process, and we found this first round very constructive. During the consultations, member states engaged in a technical conversation, highlighting ways to design mechanisms that are relevant to the speed and transformative nature of AI while preserving global legitimacy. There are a few takeaways from this consultation. There is a strong focus on capacity building as a core function of the panel, and this goes along with what Chola said, that there was an emphasis on development. Member states spoke about geographic and gender representation, and another group of states talk about multilingualism. They stress the need for accessibility of the outputs of the panel. And for the dialogue, member states stress the need for inclusivity and geographic representation, avoiding the duplication and leveraging existing mechanism and structures. Then again, we heard a focus on capacity building and knowledge exchange. Member states will continue to discuss the composition, the mandate, and the governance structure of both the scientific panel and the global dialogue. Moving forward, we'll have 2 more consultations with member states and the consultation with stakeholders. We sent this week a note verbal with guiding questions with the terms of reference of the panel and the global dialogue, so member states can structure their remarks for the second consultations. We plan to issue an elements paper to help member states give us feedback for the third round of consultations, and written input will be necessary and very welcome. My colleague Hector and I are available and willing to meet you, hear your voice, and involve you in this important process. Now I end with one comment and question. First, this process is not only about setting up a panel and a dialogue. It's asking us what we think of the role of the UN should be shape the global governance of AI. Multilateral AI governance is only nascent. This process helps establish its foundation, a foundation anchored in scientific excellence and inclusive dialogue. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chan. And if I may involve now Executive Director Ojambo, if I may ask you, if you could discuss the importance of multi-stakeholder initiatives and the private sector's role as we look to the implementation of the GDC, of the Global Digital Compact, and its stated objective to enhance the governance of AI for humanity.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador Massari, for hosting this very important dialogue. Allow me to also acknowledge the other ambassadors and permanent representatives present for their leadership on this, Ambassador Mlambo, Ambassador Chan, and the Ambassador of Spain, who I know have played critical roles in the dialogue. Colleagues from the UN, USG Amandeep, Director Ayaka, and Director Rob as well, and my good friend Chris from Microsoft, and others in the room. Really great to be here and to share some perspectives, I think, from the private sector angle around this really important topic. I think, first of all, is to just acknowledge and recognize the fast-moving pace of this dialogue on tech and AI. USG Amandeep just mentioned it, just this week and last week. The buzz around DeepSeek is a testament to how fast this sector is evolving and moving, and really a clear signal for the need why this global governance perspective and the work of the Global Digital Compact is so important. Because at the heart of it, and looking at our mandate as the UN, is that we need to ensure that nobody is left behind. And I think that is what is most critical. From the UN Global Compact perspective, private sector plays a key role in the emerging tech and AI arena, both actually as demand, and both actually from the demand side and the supply side, from the innovation and the financing side. So it's really great to have this opportunity to be part of a multi-stakeholder dialogue, because private sector is so critical to the implementation and the governance, of course, of the Global Digital Compact. We spoke to CEOs from our largest companies, and 75% of them said they know that if they do not integrate more technology and AI in their business models and work, they will be, quote unquote, left behind. But more importantly, they realize that technology and AI is not only important for enhancing their business operations, but it's truly important for addressing the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's tech and AI for advancing food systems. It's tech and AI for making sure that climate and energy initiatives are more effective and efficient. It's tech and AI to make sure that we minimize all the losses that happen across supply chains and across transportation. So there's much stronger focus on really using this tech and AI to make sure that we bridge those divides. That is not always easy, but is something that many leaders are aspiring to. Just last year, to reference some work that we did, we launched a report called Gen AI for the Global Goals to talk about how companies can use AI to advance sustainability while unlocking business value. They tell us that AI is empowering them to tap into data analysis, efficiency, decision-making, and creative problem-solving. But at the same time, they are concerned, as we have heard from previous speakers, about the governance framework and the opportunities thereof. Just last week, and many thanks to USG Amandeep for this, at the World Economic Forum, a key theme focus there was collaboration for the intelligent age. And it's great to see the keen focus on the need for collaboration, even though, as we know, it still remains a competitive business space. To talk about a few things that we hope to see through the Global Digital Compact, and first, please count on our best capabilities to mobilize private sector as we can. Businesses are looking at tech and AI to first be a data miner. There's a lot of information out there that does need to be mined. Then there's the insight provision piece. How do we use these insights to deliver better solutions? And then how do we amplify the knowledge that we find? Again, all of that needs to be governed and needs to be free of bias and applied to the best possible use of the Sustainable Development Goals. So as husband said, we have 20,000 companies within our membership. I know that they will all be using tech and AI in some way, shape, and form. But most importantly, I think they all look forward to a unified governance framework where we can use this technology, as I said, to make sure that we bridge divides and work constructively towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And now, if I may ask Mr. Sharrock to talk about Microsoft experience and projects partnering with UN organizations, governments, and others on digital technology and AI, in particular, in solving challenges. Something that maybe can also be sort of a path for future collaboration in terms of the Global Digital Compact.
Well, thanks, Marco, and thanks, Ambassador, for inviting me to the 49th floor, the best view in New York. I think I can nearly see Trento from here as we take the first step towards it. And I thought it was worthwhile just reflecting. There is so much happening in Italy right now, and Italian leadership on this issue, I think, is really considering. I think not only the G7 leadership that you showed in the AI Hub for Sustainable Development, but I look at initiatives like the Rome Call for Ethics in AI, which has been going on for some years. There was recently a decision to establish a new Center for AI and Ethics under UPeace, which is a UN body that's actually hosted in Costa Rica. So you can see that there's really a little bit of kind of momentum there. And for Microsoft, I think we're proud to play our part in Italy's journey, as we announced last year a 4.3 billion euro investment in data center and skilling infrastructure in Italy, which will also serve North Africa and the Mediterranean as part of that initiative on development. So I think Italian leadership has really been remarkable, and I would also, it would be remiss of me not to reflect on the leadership shown by Zambia through the GDC. The leadership that Costa Rica is showing as well, not only here at the UN, but at the OECD, where you'll be chairing the ministerial meeting this year. And of course, Amandeep's personal leadership through so much of this journey. Maybe the most useful thing I can do after the comments that have been made is to just illustrate a little bit what multi-stakeholderism and the use of AI can actually look like. Context. And let me talk about the Early Warnings for All initiative. Now, this is an initiative that was established by the Secretary General back in 2022. The objective of this initiative is to establish a global universal coverage of every person on this planet to have access to an early warning system that will alert them in the case of an extreme weather event and allow support and humanitarian efforts and evacuation efforts to be globally available, because it's a fact that that is not currently the case. We look at the least developed countries, and 10% of the global population, people in those countries account for something like 24% of all of those who die or go missing in extreme weather events. So Microsoft came on board with this in 2022. Brad Smith, who is our president and vice chair, is on the Secretary General's advisory board, and we have been integrated into this work from that stage. And that integration has allowed us to work with agencies. WMO and UNDRR are the two agencies that lead this. We were able to join a UNDRR mission to Ethiopia to try out the use of satellite imagery with artificial intelligence to map how rivers flood in Ethiopia and how that affects people. And we realized that what we do not have is a clear picture of populations in this world and where people live. Census data is out of date. Satellite imagery that's used is often old and out of date. And so by taking new updated satellite imagery, looking at it using artificial intelligence, we are able to arrive at that global population map, which can now inform this effort and will be able to inform in future efforts by the ITU to establish connectivity, for example, to the internet, efforts by humanitarian agencies to deliver that service. And so, you know, that's great. That's a use case of AI, but it also demonstrates how that integration of private sector partners and other tech companies and other telecoms companies have been involved as well, how that can really move the needle on a piece of work which the UN is driving. So, you know, there's lots of examples I could cite, but I know time is limited. So maybe I'll just make two other points. First of all, I would completely echo the point that Sander made. Look, Amandeep summed it up really, really well. The pace of this debate, the pace of this technology is breathtaking. And DeepSeek does demonstrate that. And, you know, this is not the first conversation I've been involved in this week on DeepSeek, I can assure you. And, you know, this is something which then, you know, will and should impact on the conversations that we have here at the UN. And we have the table at the UN, we have the people around the table, but the conversation at the UN deserves to be informed by experts. And I really would urge, as Sander did, that as the members consider these two new bodies, the scientific panel and the global policy dialogue, you think about how you could benefit from the expertise that the private sector can bring. We saw with the high-level advisory panel that Amandeep led, the benefits there of having private sector voices. And I pay tribute to the way that Zambia and Sweden brought, you know, private sector and other stakeholders in for the GDC process. But I really think we should think about an integration that is structural to try and make this ongoing. I should stop there, but I don't think that I cannot say something about the global digital divide, because the global conversation here at the UN demands that we do. And I just want to, I guess, make one point there. Look, this technology is not going to come to the global south unless we have the infrastructure investment that takes it there. And the work of the Financing for Development group will be really, really important in that regard. Let me just give one illustration of our experience in this as a company. We have committed with G42, a UAE company, we announced a package of digital infrastructure investment in Kenya. We announced an initial investment of $1 billion to build a state-of-the-art data center, which will be powered by, green renewable energy. The economics of this are tough. $1 billion is a lot of money. There's 50 million people in Kenya. It's hard to justify this investment unless the demand can be mobilized and materialized. 50 million people in Kenya, 500 million people in Africa that could be served. And we do need to have some conversations here about how we can establish, for example, trusted data zones, allowing cross-border data flows to allow the aggregation of demand to justify that investment. I'll stop there, Marco.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for illustrating and for actually giving, really interesting and, concrete examples of what it could mean, partnering between private sector and UN institutions and governments in terms of the use of AI, positive use of AI. And I would like now to involve Mr. Opp as Chief Digital Officer of the UNDP. And I'd like to, if possible, to ask you to maybe discuss, more in detail. So the AI Hub for Sustainable Development, which the UNDP is leading, in particular in partnership with the government of Italy, and focusing, as I understand, on really key areas such as data, talent, compute, enabling ecosystems. So if I'll let you sort of expand on that. Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you so much, Marco, and it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for the leadership of Italy, Ambassador Massari, and protocols to all the other guests. I won't go through everyone, but it is a real pleasure to be in such distinguished company, as always. Actually, the point where I would start is actually where Chris left off, which is convenient, because we have indeed been working with the partnership of Italy and in the context of the G7 presidency on an AI hub for sustainable development. But the reason we come to that is the broader picture that we're discussing. The digital divide is still an issue, which, as you rightly mentioned, Chris, we cannot forget to mention. There is an AI divide as well that we have to recognize, and at the breathtaking speed that technologies are emerging and evolving, we have to be cognizant that the notion of equity in distribution of technology and the benefits of technology needs to be addressed. If we don't want, as Ambassador Milambo said, the digital divide or the AI divide to translate into the development divide. And so UNDP, this is where we come to this discussion, because we believe so strongly that AI and other emerging technologies can have such a strong impact on achieving the SDGs and achieving national development outcomes. And as I said, the current trajectory does not look positive. Even setting aside recent developments, which probably makes the situation a little bit more dramatic, some of the estimates by, for example, PwC have put the global economic contribution of AI at around $16 trillion by 2030. But the contribution expected from Africa and most of the global South is not even 10% of that. And so the question is really, can we look at how to bend the arc of development in this space so that not that we have to take away in a zero-sum way or move from one part to the other in terms of prosperity. It's actually growing the entire pie of prosperity, if I can put it that way, because AI does have that promise to it. And so we fully subscribe to the direction of the GDC. We see ourselves as a strong implementing part of the GDC together with other partners. And the AI Hub for Sustainable Development really grew out of this context and the leadership of Italy to really look at the situation in the African continent, which is the home of the least developed countries in the world, and I think probably suffers most from this AI equity gap. The AI Hub for Sustainable Development is based around the premise of how public or private sector partnerships, including with public sector, can be leveraged to help AI ecosystems develop and flourish across the African continent. And as we were undergoing the planning for the hub, we really interviewed a lot of innovators, government officials, and other civil society and so on across the African continent, and identified a few big challenge areas, which are not going to take anyone by surprise. You mentioned them, Marco, and it's often adopted as a framework. Data, there's a shortage of data that can support the accurate and effective use and development of AI systems. There's definitely a shortage of talent. That's actually the case everywhere in the world, but Africa is even more dramatic. Pardon me. The compute challenge, African innovators struggle to get access to the compute that they need, and it's good to see the investments coming from Microsoft and other players in this space, and we absolutely need to work toward sustainable or green compute as well. And then the last area is what we call enabling environment, which is really how countries are putting in place, governments are putting in place the policies, the strategies, the support environment to allow private sector partnerships and ecosystem development to happen. And so we've already launched, the hub is still in operationalization phase, but we've already launched a number of pilot initiatives. So we've started working in the data space on local language digitalization. We've started in West Africa with the Twi language, which has about 18 million speakers, but is not well represented in any of the foundation AI models being developed right now. And there are many other languages and other data sources as well. In the talent space, we launched and successfully carried out the first startup accelerator for African companies and startups working in AI. In the compute space, we hope to launch soon a Green Compute Coalition that looks at the African continent and how we can incentivize more investment in those areas. And then in the enabling environment, we've launched a trust and safety reimagination program, which is looking at often trust and safety issues are seen as kind of corporate reputational protection in a way. I think we need to expand that and look at how in the African continent, and when it comes to application, how trust and safety programs can be more human-centric and put the needs of individuals at the center. So I'll end there, but just to say we're very grateful, as I said, for the leadership of Italy, the partnerships that are emerging with Microsoft, many other private sector players across our UN partners, including the office, ODET, but I'm still fumbling with the new name, Amandeep. So Office of Digital and Emerging Technologies, and UNESCO, ITU, and many others when it comes to the partnerships that we need to lift this effort, because it's truly going to need the partnership across multiple stakeholders.
Thank you to Mr. Opp, and we unfortunately we are short of time, but I wanted to thank all the panelists, all the speakers that really showed how this is a multi-stakeholder process and how important it is in order to really deal with the challenges of AI and of its human governance of AI, ethical and for like an inclusive approach. And as it's my honor now to and my pleasure to introduce a message from Achim Steiner, who is the UNDP administrator, and now in his second term. He is also the vice chair of the UN Sustainable Development Group, which unites 40 entities of the UN system. Over nearly 3 decades, Steiner has been a global leader on sustainable development, climate resilience, and international cooperation. He also has lived and worked in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Europe, Latin America, and the United States. So with this, I'll just leave it to Mr. Steiner.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Maurizio Massari, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. unfortunately, I was unable to join you in person today as the UNDP Executive Board is meeting this week. However, I'm pleased to join this timely event through this brief video message. The Global Digital Compact is not just a vision, but a clear roadmap for ensuring that technologies such as artificial intelligence serve humanity's best interests. It recognizes that the decisions we make today about AI will ripple across generations, shaping development outcomes far into the future. Everything from spurring entrepreneurship and driving down poverty to advancing climate action. As we work to implement the Compact, it is imperative that developing countries are not left in a passive participant's position, but active architects of the unfolding AI revolution. This requires building the infrastructure, the talent, and the environments essential for an inclusive AI progress. The government of Italy has been pivotal in turning this vision into a reality, particularly during its G7 presidency in the year 2024. The Verona process on digital development, a key outcome of Italy's leadership, underscores the importance of collaborating with developing countries to democratize AI tools and strengthen local AI ecosystems. On behalf of the United Nations Development Programme, I would also like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Ministry of Enterprise and Made in Italy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their partnership on the newly established UNDP AI Hub for Sustainable Development. By convening partners from the Italian private sector and beyond, together with innovators across Africa, we are helping to lay the critical foundations to ensure that all countries can reap the benefits of AI. This hub, launched under Italy's G7 presidency, is a powerful example of how a global vision can translate into very tangible action, aligning with the Mattei plan to drive new investment across the African continent. At UNDP, we believe that a rights-based approach to AI governance can effectively manage risks while also unlocking new progress towards the global goals. We are seeing how effective AI governance requires collaboration between government, industry, and other stakeholders to create the very frameworks that both enable innovation and ensure its responsible development. This challenge also requires a human-centered response. Without the skills and capacities to build thriving AI ecosystems, countries and even regions risk missing opportunities to develop and deploy AI solutions tailored to their local challenges, markets and opportunities. In this respect, UNDP has begun to deploy an AI landscape assessment tool in dozens of countries already to help governments identify gaps and opportunities in their capacity to use, enable and govern AI responsibly. To our Italian private sector partners, your unique expertise and active engagement will be pivotal in realizing this shared vision. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations is committed to supporting governments to advance the safe and meaningful adoption of artificial intelligence, guiding us towards new frontiers of progress and opportunity. This stems from our understanding that AI requires the steady hand of human intelligence to guide its deployment. The message is unmistakable. Governments must now rewire their own systems to ensure that AI can power a future of shared progress for all. Thank you again for this opportunity to address you today, and I wish you a very successful meeting. Grazie mille.
Thank you to Mr. Steiner for the message. And now, at the conclusion of this Road to Trento event, I leave the last word to Ambassador Massari.
No, thank you very much. I think it has been a very interesting discussion, a panel, a lot of stimulating inputs. I would, in my brief remarks, I would start from the sentence of the Secretary General Guterres, that we have an historic responsibility to develop an AI that benefits all. And for that, we need a global governance, inclusive, ethical, but also development enabling governance to avoid, as has been said by many, by Cholo and others, that the AI and digital divide translates into development divide. This is the key challenge. If we don't do that, it will be a jungle, lose-lose at the end, because we'll create a lot of deep divisions in the world that is already very polarized. So there is an historic responsibility, and to establish this basis platform of global governance, there is no alternative to the UN. We have a roadmap, which is the implementation of the Global Digital Compact, with the scientific panel and the global dialogue on AI governance. I think that it's important to call for all governments and members of the UN to engage in this exercise of establishing these structures, which are structures of a light governance, but necessary in order to avoid all the risks that and sort of AI without any kind of common principle would imply. I think also that it's already evident, obvious now that we need to incorporate the AI dimension in all the dimensions of the UN activity in the high-level meetings that we have ahead of us this year, starting from the FFD4 in Spain, but also the, for example, the food security system summit 4 that will take place in Ethiopia in July, the social summit in Qatar, and so on and so forth. It's impossible to address these issues. Of course, I mean, the COP30 in Belém, it's impossible to address all these issues that are part of the global commons, whether it's food security or the environment or the social issues, development without factoring in the dimension of the AI. And in conclusion, the key is the implementation of the roadmap of the Digital Global Compact, and of course the partnerships and the multi-stakeholder approach. Chris, thank you very much for telling us important things about the role that the private sector can play. It is absolutely crucial. Governments alone cannot do it, and particularly when it comes to the action to avoid the digital divide that becomes also development divide. So thank you all, and I think we can continue this discussion on in the future, and I think it's our common interest and challenge. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody.